All right, everybody. I'm here with John Shirey, CEO at Full Stack Payments. How you doing there, John?
Doing fantastic.
Excellent. So, John, before we dive into selling monster merchants and these big ISVs and all that, give us an update. How's Full Stack Payments doing? What are some of the things? It's been a little while actually. We did like live events every few days. It felt like for a little while. Now we've kind of cooled off a little bit. Talk about that if you would.
Well, I mean, in terms of cooled off, we actually are still rolling out different partnerships. We just started rolling out a little different way. So we started doing this soft launch where we're rolling out a partnership, but only bringing a handful of people into the partnership at the beginning to schedule leads for the ISV.
Right.
That just kind of gives everybody a chance to understand the process. Then when we do the big live events, it's like both sides are already familiar with how they get the leads from Full Stack Payments, how they follow up with the leads, how all the payments work with everything. Sure. So we started doing that with a few ISVs, and we definitely have a lot more in the hopper now to start rolling them out. And also some of those initial soft launches are also rolling up and finishing up to where we're going to be doing the big live events on those partnerships. So definitely a lot going on, and it's been really, really exciting.
Very exciting. Talk to us a little bit about the sales model. I know there's been some changes there in terms of kind of what does a partnership with an ISV really look like? What's their core competency? What's our core competency? Talk about that a little bit.
So we have one really big shift that's kind of maybe in the process of we're kind of implementing it, and that is for some of the ISVs we're working with, we are trying to get more hands-on in terms of actually helping them with the payment side of things. And this is a really big shift. Also, and sometimes even doing the demos for the ISVs.
Right.
What I mean by that is we have some partnerships where we are literally scheduling a demo and turning that over to the ISV. They are doing the demo internally, selling the payments along with the software, and Full Stack Payments processes the payments, but that's about it.
Right.
With some of these other partnerships, what we're doing now is when the agents actually schedule a lead for the ISV, in some cases, it actually comes to somebody on the Full Stack Payments team, and we're actually demoing the software, and we're actually selling the payments along with the software.
Right.
So that's really exciting. You're going to hear a lot more about that in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
We just started doing that for a couple of our partners, and it's amazing because I have some people in our team that are just really, really good at software demos.
Yeah.
And that are just experts at payments.
Right.
And when you can kind of pair those two things together, it's really, really hard to beat. The conversations I've had with people recently are like, look, our team is just going to do better. We're just going to have better results. We're going to be able to get more deals across the line. We're going to be able to get better processing margin on the deals, which everybody cares about.
Right.
So it's a big shift a little bit, and we're not doing that exclusively with any of our partners or anything like that. It's like we're just kind of sharing in that load to see how that goes. But it's definitely a big change and really exciting.
It turns out I think there are some really unique components to completing a demo from a lead that came from an agent in the field. Like there's just a unique component. That's a different lead than one that comes from Facebook or Google pay-per-click.
Correct.
And so I think what we're starting to see is a lot of these ISVs who have a fantastic sales team that are able to close deals internally. When it comes to leads from agents, there's some extra steps and some things that go along with that we're just really, really good at. And so it's really exciting. I've actually really been enjoying that. I know a couple of partnerships where we saw a really significant increase in conversion rate and things like that by taking it in-house.
Correct.
So that's just really exciting. And so we're scaling up that team as quickly as we can possibly scale it up. So.
Well, and when you see the value in the payments margin, and it's just such a big piece to the particular deal.
Right.
It influences the way you're going to do a demo. It influences the way you're going to schedule that demo with trying to really get it scheduled as quick as possible when that lead comes in.
Right.
I have people that are doing demos in the evening because the merchant is busy throughout the day. Just things like that. Yeah. It's really hard to have that initial conversation with the ISV and help them understand how urgent some of those deals can potentially be for the merchant.
All right, so last thing I have for you today, John. So before we bring in Brian and I introduce him, and we're going to be talking about all the nuts and bolts of how to get a large merchant account and or an ISV across the finish line, what that looks like from a sales process all the way through implementation. But from a Full Stack Payments perspective, talk about this in terms of how does if an agent has, again, we'll talk about the definition of an enterprise account and all that in a minute, but if they have an enterprise account, how do they go about getting that lead over to us? And then what does the compensation look like? I want to get all that out of the way up front so that we can really just focus in more on the nuts and bolts of getting the deal done.
Sure. So, it's going to look a lot similar to the other ISVs that we work with through the Full Stack Payments app. So actually during this event, you're going to see that Full Stack Enterprise is actually going to show up now as an ISV in the Full Stack Payments app. When you're when you have a particular deal on the table and it's an enterprise type of a merchant, you can actually still just go into the Full Stack Payments app, go to the Full Stack Enterprise, and you'll be able to actually schedule that lead, for Brian on our team. We're going to introduce here in a minute.
Right.
And then we're going to actually just get our hands in on that process and work with the agent and with the merchant and with the opportunity to actually do whatever we need to do to get that deal across the finish line. So I know you're going to talk a little bit more about, how that actually works and the implications there. But basically they're still going to do it through the app. In terms of compensation, they still are going to receive a 50% residual split, which honestly is kind of crazy in terms of the amount of capital sometimes needed to get these deals across the finish line. I'm sure you're going to talk about that with Brian here in a little bit, in terms of the time needed and, multiple meetings, implementation process. There's a lot that goes into closing some of these really big deals. But it is a true 50% residual for the agent who just refers that deal in, and basically just does it.
And then there's on those, we're not going to do the $100 because there's no demo. So there's no hey, you get $100 up front, because who cares? These are deals where you're going to make $5,000, $10,000, $50,000 a month, whatever it is in residual. You probably don't care about $100. You want to get the deal done, right?
If you really are upset that you brought a monster deal in
and didn't get
and you're going to make thousands of dollars in residual and you didn't get $100, maybe I'll just slide you a $100 bill out of my own pocket. I don't know. We haven't talked about that. Maybe don't hold me to that. You probably should say things like that on a live event, right? But the $100, we didn't see it as it just is irrelevant in this situation. So
I got it. Awesome. Great. John, why don't you actually introduce who I'm going to be interviewing today? Because, we've both been so excited about having Brian on our team. So talk about that a little bit.
Met Brian a couple months ago, actually at an Ativia conference. And me and you both, we were just so impressed with Brian, just somebody that was just like, man, I would just love to work with this guy. Few weeks down the road, we kept communication, and next thing you know, we actually just brought Brian on board 3 weeks ago. So he's new to the Full Stack Payments team. I actually made a joke right before this event. It took me 5 years to get on a live event with James. I worked with him for a lot of years before I ended up coming onto the camera. Brian's coming on in 3 weeks, but honestly, we can't wait to kind of introduce him. And can't wait to see what he can do with these enterprise type deals and ISVs, to really take it to the next level for the agents that are wanting to work on monster deals.
Awesome. Well, with that intro, Brian, come join us over here. So thanks, John. So everybody, want to introduce you to Mr. Brian Fitzgerald. How you doing today, Brian?
I'm doing well. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Brian, introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us kind of your background. I know you've been in the payments industry for quite a while, so give us your story a little bit if you would.
Sure. I'm a 20-year veteran of the merchant services industry. I started out in the leasing finance side. For 16 years, I worked with ISOs and ISVs.
Yeah.
So this opportunity filled my niche.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you've been working with a lot of the larger enterprise type clients, also the kind of larger ISVs. So talk about that a little bit, your background. When did you, because I imagine when you first got into the payments industry, you mentioned the lease and finance side of it. At what point, how long had you been in the industry before you were like, okay, I'm ready to tackle a gigantic deal? Like, what was that like?
Sure. It took a few years.
I bet.
It's definitely a different type of sales cycle than what many ISOs are used to. That's not to say you can't learn it. You certainly can. We just want to help you get to that point where you can do it on your own. And there's no reason not to utilize our services.
Love it. Okay, so let's start out here as we jump into this. So again, John kind of already alluded to this, right? So the agents now in the Full Stack Payments app, they can swipe over on their ISV list. They can go to Full Stack Payments Enterprise, fill that out, and that's going to send this lead to you. Let's start by defining what an enterprise account is for us. And I know your official title is EVP of ISV and Enterprise Partnership. So talk about what is an enterprise account to you, and what is this kind of definition that we're looking for?
Sure. Well, enterprise definition varies across the board. For Full Stack, we're going to define it as 12 locations or 12 million in annual processing volume. Our sweet spot is anywhere from that 12 to 50 million. The reason being is the sales cycle is long enough to begin with, but there is that sweet spot and there's enough meat on the bone to keep doing it over and over again. You get above $50, $100 million, that could take a year to get
yeah.
get a
And
deal
then
done.
by the time you get it, you get like 2 cents a transaction.
Exactly. The margin
It's
is
like
very
margin.
small in those type of deals.
Right. I've been really blown away by, just the number of deals that have come across my plate. And one of the reasons I'm so excited about doing this event with you, I've wanted to do this for a long time. I mean, we just met not long ago, but it's like, I get so many emails from agents that are like, James, I've got this big deal. It would produce 10,000 a month in residual income, 20,000 a month in residual. And they're like, I need help.
Yep.
And I'm like, I don't do that. Like that hasn't been something that I've done. Right. And
Right.
so excited now that it's like, now I can actually say, great, we can do that for you. Now in that definition, you talked about, so 12 million in annual volume, right? So we're talking about $1 million a month in payment processing volume, right? Minimum, or 12 locations. So the 12 location pizza shop place that does, 700,000 a month. Yeah,
Exactly.
that still fits, right?
Exactly.
Talk about the ISV side as well, though, because we're also including in this that if they have a software company that's looking for payments, they could refer those over as well. What have you seen as far as like, what are ISVs that are a good fit? I mean, is there any advice you would give, or any certain types of ISVs you want or you don't want?
Sure. We're open to anything. Every deal is going to be different, which is why we have to take a consultative approach to each deal.
Right.
And so I think as I explained to you earlier, depending on who you're speaking with, their pain points are different. And each business has different pain points. So
Yes.
you could be talking to a chief commercial officer, and all he wants to do is bring in more deals.
Right.
And he may need a line buster. He may need a kiosk. He may need to say, I need 2 less people at the countertop,
Right.
And I can replace them with a kiosk. You might then talk to a chief financial officer,
Right.
and they just care about the bottom line, right?
Right.
So they may need a full blown analysis on their statement,
Right.
or something along those lines. So again, a consultative sales method is what's going to win the deal for us.
Right. And so, so when we're talking about these deals, it's like, these are complicated. There's so in other words, if you have a deal, right, and you're thinking to yourself, I got this, no problem. I know this deal. I'm going to put some terminals in. We're going to be good to go. You don't need to send that to us. That's not what
Correct.
this is. That's not what this is.
Yeah.
This is not for that. This is for that deal where, like you mentioned, you realize, oh, okay, I got to talk to the CFO before I get this deal, or I have to talk to the chief commercial officer, or whatever. There's some kind of an issue here. There's an integration that needs to happen, or I don't know what to do with the hardware, whatever. So we're looking at these complex deals, and then we're going to dive in and have that conversation. And so one of the prerequisites I would say is like, these agents definitely need to have a solid connection with this person. Like we don't send us a list of like a cold, hey, here's an enterprise business that I've never talked to. That's
Right.
not what we're looking for. We're looking for that warm introduction.
Correct.
Right. Any tips that you would give though for the agents? Like, what is there anything that they could do on their end to like make your job a little easier?
Sure. Well, you kind of touched on it. The success of this market is a relationship has to be there.
Yes.
Right. So ping friends and family.
Yeah.
Ping the local pizzeria you go to every Friday that may have 6 other locations, 10 other locations, wherever the case may be.
Right.
One of the things I thought back on was when you had TSI on your
Yeah.
podcast, and I believe he mentioned he had a single medical office
Right.
that he was doing business with. It got acquired by a hospital. So all of a sudden he went from one MID
Right.
to a large hospital.
Yeah.
So keep in touch with your existing merchant portfolio.
Right.
As you should be doing that anyways.
Right, of
But
course.
But don't be afraid to ask them for referrals.
Right.
Ping their network besides your own. Yeah.
Right, for sure. Okay, so let's talk for a minute here about the initial conversation. So an agent goes into the app, they fill out this form, they send it to you, you set up a time, you jump on, probably the agent's joining them at, whatever, but you have that initial conversation. How do you approach that initial conversation? What do you start talking about? Is it economics? Is it value? Is it like, what do you start with in these conversations?
Yeah. A warm intro goes a long way. So if the dealer has a connection there,
Sure.
that goes a long way. And then, like I said, we got to go in there and kind of find those pain points. What is it that's opening the door for us to go in there and convert their payments over to full stack? And so we want to be in this together with the agent. It'd be better if you're not comfortable doing it, you just want to hand over a lead to us, that's fine. We can accommodate that.
Right.
But we'd really like to go in it together. I
Yeah.
think that's, we're going to have a higher success rate.
For sure.
And then again, we don't want you to do one enterprise deal. We want you to do 4 or 5 throughout your career. And so if we can teach you how to do it and
Right.
help simplify the process,
Yeah.
it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, I think most of the agents that are going after these larger deals, they have this dilemma, right? Because they're the reputational issue, right? They're like, okay, if I have a big deal, it's either like a relative, right, or it's a big business in my local market. Man, that weighs really heavy on me,
Sure.
so I want to make sure I'm handing it off to someone that's really gonna,
Right.
take a good care of it. So I talk about that a little bit. So we get past that initial conversation, right? What is your level of involvement? What is Full Stack Payments going to be doing with these accounts to ensure that, man, these agents made this handoff. They want to know it's going to be taken care
Yeah.
of.
So we are going to invest significantly. Not only, it could be funds to close the deal. They might need working capital. They might need cash for hardware.
Right.
They may need an ISV integration to go forward.
Right.
They need a third party that's integral to their business.
Yeah.
That they may not already have, but they want to have it.
Right.
So they can grow their business.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to go in there with that, again, consultative approach
Yeah.
to selling.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I was just thinking about kind of the complexity of these deals. I'm thinking about a deal that you know about that we're working on right now. And by the way, to clarify too, this side of the business, the enterprise side, I'm personally involved in this side. So I haven't, on the other side of the business, obviously I advise as the lead investor and everything like that, but I love these big deals, as you know. So I enjoy getting involved as a consultant and helping bring business to Full Stack. But there's a deal I had on the table already, and it's like, this deal's $500 million a year in volume. And then they've got a 3.5%, they're charging a 3.5% compliant, convenience fee. So, the margin on these deals is crazy, but then it's like, you see that initially, and I think this is where a lot of the agents have problems, right? They see that, and they see that kind of pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, but it's kind of a myth a little bit.
Exactly.
Like in that deal specifically, as you know, it's like, well, there was a technology company that we had to integrate to. And this technology company is like nearly impossible to integrate to.
Right.
So I had to leverage a connection of a connection of a connection to get to somebody on the board of directors to get a meeting, which I haven't even finalized yet.
Right.
And so I'll be working on this deal. If I'm lucky, I'll get this deal in 6 or 8 months.
Right.
You know what I
If
mean?
you're lucky.
If I'm lucky. Right. And so I think though, for the agents to understand that, like, be very careful. Just because you see a deal and you're like, oh man, I can make all this money on that deal. It's like, well, sure. Right. Or you could turn the deal over to a couple of people that combined have a pretty significant network and a lot of experience in the industry.
Right.
That are able to actually bring the deal across the line, because the fact that you're getting an 80% split with somebody else, 80% of nothing is still nothing.
Right.
50% of, $100,000 a month or $50,000 a month in margin is really, really significant.
Right.
I don't know what your thoughts on that. I've seen a lot of agents kind of do that, where they kind of bite off a little more than they can chew with some of these deals.
Right. And I kind of touched base on it earlier. The sales cycle is long enough as it is, and that's why we define that sweet spot. It's
Right.
12 locations or $1 million a month, right?
Right.
But we can do 5 million, 10 million a month.
Right.
That's our sweet spot. That's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck
Yeah.
in terms of compensation for you.
Right.
Again, those big deals could take years. Again, you can be making $100 on a month on a residual
Right.
if you're lucky.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
the sweet spot, I think we defined it well.
Right.
And I think it's attainable.
Yeah,
I
it
really
is.
do. I think you're
It
going to
is.
have a lot of opportunities
Yeah.
within your own network that you
Right.
probably haven't leveraged before, because you might have been intimidated by,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, they're doing 20 million. How can I
Right.
land that deal?
Yeah. Well, I think too, one of the other things that I found really interesting with these types of deals is that, networking is really important with that, right? Because the payments industry is relatively small. You know what I mean? And what I found is, you'll come across a deal where it's like, it seems impossible to you because they have a point of sale system and you can't integrate to that.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, if it's big enough, right? If there's enough margin there, then it's like, okay, well, Full Stack Payments will just buy them a new point of sale system for free.
Exactly.
We will finance the point of sale system. I will personally call the company who owns the point of sale system and say, let me do this deal and I'll do another deal with you on the strategic side. And so, right, I think there's a lot to that, kind of the networking piece of like making a deal happen. But, Brian, talk to us about ROI. Like, you know what I mean? When you look at a deal, how do you look at that deal and say, yeah, we want to make this deal happen, versus like, no, we're going to stay away from
Right. And again, every deal is different. So the ROI is going to be different in every deal. So
Yeah.
we have to go into it with not knowing the variables. So we can't go in there and say, oh, we expect to make this. We got to dig in there and find out what it is we need to invest in the deal to land the deal.
Right.
And so it's a complicated process, but it's one we could do. But again, that relationship, it's just key. You're just going to have far more success pinging your network
Yeah.
than you will just a cold call, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, I've got a couple of questions for you, and then by the way, I do want to get to Q&A. I want to put quite a bit of time in here for Q&A because I know you're going to have a lot of questions out there. Again, this is a tough event to put together. It's like for us to say we're going to talk to you about gyms. It's like that's pretty well defined. To say we're going to talk about enterprise deals, I mean, ISVs. There's a lot that goes into that, and there's a lot of variables. So I want to give time for questions, but a few other questions I have for you, Brian. So let's talk about the implementation. All right, so we go through this process. We get somebody to say yes. Like, all right, they signed on the dotted line. They decided to move forward. What are the keys to a smooth implementation? How do we actually get them from yes to like an activated merchant account?
Sure. Yeah. Getting them to say yes is just a portion of the process, right? So we're going to handle it with white glove service. We got to get them, again, it's complicated. We have to bring an ISV in sometimes. Again, we have to maybe outlay some cash. So we have to build that whole process in, but we're going to do it together.
Yeah.
And that's the key we need to know. But Full Stack has the resources to do it. Again, depending on the ROI,
Right.
I know you've even mentioned sometimes purchasing a POS, company for it. We can do that kind of stuff as long as it makes sense.
Right.
One point I wanted to bring up in these enterprise type deals, you're going to have that merchant in your portfolio a long time when you have this.
Yes.
Because there's so many attrition fighters with it. You're going to have an ISV involved. You're going to have a relationship where that white glove service is going to be there.
Right.
So no matter who comes in after you,
Right.
they're going to have to go through that long cycle as well. But we're going to do everything we can so that they're not even interested in looking for another opportunity. But again, we want that merchant there. If we're going to invest the time, the money, the resources, we want them for years to come.
Right, exactly. And they usually do because again, there's a
usually
lot of barriers. A lot of times you're talking about an integration to an ERP system or whatever it might be. And so, what we're talking about with these deals again is resources. And I think, I look at it in three ways, Brian. It's like when I talk to agents, the reason they don't get these deals is because they don't have three things. Number one is expertise. Sometimes they'll have general payments expertise, but it's like you need to have the expertise of like being able to put these pieces together, right? And understand like, well, we don't have an integration to this particular gateway, or we don't have this, we need a certain kind of R sheet, or we need whatever it is, right? And so there's an expertise gap, right? Then the second one is the developer resources or the technical resources, right? And so, being able to figure out like, okay, they told me that they'll switch to me as long as I can make sure that their QuickBooks Online integration continues to work. And you're like, well, how do I do that? Right. And so, there's a technical resource involved there where, we may need to do a custom Zapier integration to tie their point of sale system together with a different QuickBooks Online plugin. These are things that an individual agent is never going to pull off.
And nor should they, right?
No, it's not their core competency.
It's not,
right. So that's number two. Number three is just cash, just your resources. And I've talked about this on my podcast so many times, Brian. One of the things that is like a pet peeve of mine, and I'm so glad that I will never have to deal with this again, is agents will reach out to me and they will say to me things like, okay, James, I have this deal and I wasn't able to close it. And I'm like, okay, why not? And they're like, well, it was going to generate $8,000 a month in residual, but they needed $30,000 in equipment. And I'm like, what? And you didn't close the deal. And it's like, well, no, I don't have $30,000. And I'm like, well, yeah, but that 30,000 is going to be break even in 4 months.
Yep.
Never again will I have to have that conversation, because in those situations I can say, hey, Brian's going to work with you on this deal and we're going to get it done. Because if there's a deal where it's ROI positive, like we're going to do that deal. I don't care what it is. I don't care how much like you said, if I have to buy the point of sale company, like I don't care. Like if it's a good deal, we're going to do the deal.
Right. And don't underestimate, this is to the dealer network out there, James's network itself, right? If he doesn't know an ISV or someone that can help us land a deal, someone he knows can help us.
Right.
They know someone, right?
We were talking about that today. It's like between the two of us, I can't imagine that we're at least a 2-degree connection away from every single person that would have anything to do with the payments industry.
I agree. And thank you for that compliment to put me in your ballpark there.
Yeah, so we're just super excited about it. And again, this is a deal that I'm going to be much more involved with personally. Again, Brian obviously, taking point on this and has tons of experience. But yeah, it's like you're going to leverage my network, you're going to leverage my resources. Anything that is needed to get a deal done, we're going to get the deal done if it makes sense.
It makes sense.
If you bring us a deal and we look at it, and it just so happens I own the largest statement analysis company in the country as well. So obviously we're going to do a deep dive into that. And it's like if we look at it and it's like, okay, we're going to make $300-400 a month. Right. It's like, probably that's not the deal that we're going to do. Right. But we're talking about if you bring us a deal and it's like, okay, hey, this deal is going to bring in $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month, $10,000 a month, and we can split that 50-50 with you, and it's going to take X amount of dollars up front or X amount of development work, we're going to go after that, and we're going to get that deal done.
And again, the long-term relationship with the merchant now allows us to do that, right? Because we're confident they're not going to leave after a year.
Right.
So, yeah.
One last thing I want to point out here, Brian, and I want to get your thoughts on this, then we'll go to Q&A. One thing I find so interesting is dual pricing, compliant surcharging. I lump it in differential pricing, right?
Right.
It is becoming so prevalent that even on some of these enterprise deals, right, I'm starting to see those opportunities there. Like, hey, you've got that, 20 location, restaurant, right? Fine dining or whatever. It's like, well, I actually have some really good POS connections where we could do a dual pricing scenario in there. And now you have something where you got $4 million a month and you're generating 1-2% margin.
Right.
That is a life-changing amount of money. Like, talk about I know you've done some big deals with ISOs where they've been able to generate some serious amount of money on some of these deals.
It can be life-changing. Again, we're not going to commit that every deal you're going to make $20,000 a month.
Right.
But that opportunity is there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so it's very exciting times. Your touch base on the dual pricing. It's amazing how many merchants are not aware of that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, hey, I think John spoke with a merchant and they're like, my fees are way too high. So John's like, well, I'm going to increase it to 3%. And he's like, wait, you're going to increase my fees? He's like, yeah, but you don't
pay it.
You don't pay it.
Right.
right. So they're just not aware of that.
But or they've heard of it, but they don't, they have this like concern, especially the larger enterprise deals, this concern about compliance.
Right.
And so, again, when they jump on, like we have an internal document that I created that's probably like, I don't know, 10, 15 pages, and it's a compliance document, and it's very detailed, goes right into Visa and like, hey, here's how to be really fully compliant, whether it's compliant cash discounting, surcharging, convenience fees, like for government and things of that nature, service fees, or dual pricing. And so we can go through there, and then we can, like you said, match up and say, okay, here's the ISV that's going to actually implement this for your type of business, right? And so we can pull all that stuff together. And when we do, man, I'm telling you what, the money is pretty crazy.
It's really crazy.
Yeah.
It could be life-changing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, so here, I'll give you the math real quick, right? So we'll see if I can do this math in my head. All right. So correct me if I'm wrong here. Okay. So if you can get let's say 1% margin. So again, most of these enterprise deals, they're not going to do a 3.99% dual pricing, right? But let's say they're going to do maybe 3.5. So let's say you're going to get 1% margin to make the math easy on a deal, right? So if they do $100,000 a month, that's $1,000 a month, right? So at $1 million a month, that's $10,000 a month in margin. 50% split, you as the agent, you're getting $5,000 a month. So you bring us one deal doing $1 million a month that is willing to do like a dual pricing type setup, and we get them all done, right? That's $5,000 a month in the pocket of the agent.
Correct.
Who did the deal. $60,000 a year raise you just gave yourself with one deal.
Right.
Now imagine if they do $10 million a month, right? Those deals are out there. Right now we're at $50,000 a month. So again, those deals are out there now. Are all the big deals going to go dual pricing or surcharging? No. A lot of them are going to go much more thin margin on that. But still, you bring a $10 million a month deal over, right? Well, let's say you generate 10 basis points of margin. Right now, you're still back to that. You're generating $5,000 a month in income. So a lot of big opportunities out there.
Yeah, and don't forget their network, right? We touched base on it earlier, but that merchant that you're doing business with that's doing, could be $5 million a month in processing value. He knows someone else that's doing $5 million a month. So that when they're looking for a payment solution, and they've had a great experience with us, they're going to open the door to the agent as well as us.
Right.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. So we're going to go to Q&A. So go ahead and start typing up your questions in the question box there. John's going to help us out from behind the scenes there. But last thing while John's kind of getting those in order, I just want to say that I am just really, really excited about this one. Again, because I know I'm going to be more involved in it. I know you're really excited about it, Brian. And so we are really teaming up here and saying we want to work with you to get your deals across the finish line. Again, we're not looking for, if you send us a merchant that's doing, $100,000 a month, $200,000 a month, we're not working with that merchant. So I want to make that really clear what this is not for. And so, this is merchants that are doing $1 million a month or more, or they have they have 12 locations, right? So, because we know if they have 12 locations, they're probably doing $1 million a month anyway,
right?
Or they're really close to getting to that point. And the other thing this is for, and we didn't talk about this very much, the other thing this is for the ISV. So if you have a software company and you're like, yeah, I want to refer the software company. And again, you've got a good connection. You don't just know who they are. You know somebody. You've talked to the CEO. You've talked to somebody there. You have a real connection. You want to bring us in on that deal. again, you can bring these over to Brian. Brian has 10 years with ISVs,
Right.
like something like that. So, those deals again are going to require custom integrations. They're going to require custom onboarding and underwriting guidelines. They're going to require embedded merchant applications, payout reports, all via API. Full Stack Payments has all of that. So we can come to that ISV and give them everything that they need to get up and running quickly. So large enterprise deal or ISV, you go into the mobile app, you go to the Full Stack Payments Enterprise, you fill out the form. That's going to go to Brian, who's got a wealth of knowledge and experience here. He's going to reach out on those deals and then bring John and I in as needed. Again, I will personally be more than happy to work with any of these merchants, jump on any Zooms or meetings with these merchants when it makes sense for me to do that. So, all right, with that being said, John, what do you got for us today?
All right. So the first question, I'm just going to clarify this. So you would start by putting the lead through the app. I did want to clarify that. We had a couple of people saying, do we reach out to James first or to Brian first or to myself first? You actually still put the lead through the app. That's just for like tracking purposes.
Yep.
And then that goes straight to Brian and our team. And then we kind of start working.
And let's clarify that even further, John, so the idea would be it's going to come through the app. So you go to the mobile app, the Full Stack Payments app. Do not reach, if you reach out to me, the email's probably going to get deleted. Okay. Again, not by me. I have a whole team of people. So don't do that. What you want to do is go to the mobile app, fill out the form. That's going to go to Brian. Brian is going to then reach out to you, the agent.
Correct.
And schedule a call and talk to them a little bit and see what the deal is. Am I right?
Hopefully facilitate an introduction.
Yes.
Right. That's the goal.
And in the when you go in to set that appointment, I did want to clarify too, you will see a spot in there just to kind of describe the deal. So I put a note field in the app. When you put that lead in, you can kind of just put a sentence or two in there or a couple of sentences about the deal in general. That way, Brian knows what he's kind of reaching out about initially. Again, and he's going to be talking with the agent. That did kind of answer, Tom asked a question and said, can he be involved in the entire process? So James or Brian, you can touch on that, but I mean,
go
obviously,
Brian,
yes. But
we would love you to be involved with the entire process for sure. Again, passing on the knowledge is key for other deals, but you've got the relationship. We want to leverage that. So yes, we'd love to have him involved.
And I'll be you can be the good cop. I'll be the bad cop. Don't get in our way.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be the one to say that because it does happen. So again, Brian and I both are just really transparent. We know how to do these deals. When you jump into the deal, if you're bringing the deal to us, it means that you need our help to get the deal done, right? And so we want to include you, but the main thing that we need you for is we need you to help us keep that ball rolling by leveraging your relationship to get us the next meeting, right? So the issue is going to be, we're going to jump on that first meeting. You're going to be so excited because, Brian or myself, whoever's on this meeting or both of us, we are going to make a good impression on this merchant. I'm just telling you right now, or the ISV, and they're going to be like, oh my goodness, this sounds so exciting, right? We've all been on these meetings, okay? What happens next is nothing, okay? You have to reach back out and say, hey, that meeting went really well. Did you get those payment processing statements? So that part of it is actually very similar to the smaller deals, right? There's this initial step of we have to find out the information. But what I really want to keep you from doing is when you get into those later meetings, especially where we start getting into the technology aspect and all that, be very careful that you don't get in the way. And there's a couple main ways that agents get in the way in my experience. Number one is many of you have a little bit of sticker shock. You got to be very careful. Don't hurt the negotiation because we may say to that merchant, hey, we found a great way to do this. All we need from you is $50,000 up front. And then we're going to cover the other $50,000. And that's a very reasonable offer. And they have way more than $50,000. No big deal. But if you kind of go, oh, wow, $50,000, you just ruined it, right? So be very careful as you get into those later stages. Don't have sticker shock. The other thing is don't try to pretend that you know something that you don't know. One of the, I would say, number 1, 2, and 3 on the list of worst things you can do in an enterprise deal is pretend that you know something you don't know. We have experts. There will be many, many times that Brian on those meetings is going to say, yeah, I don't know. But I'm going to find out from our IT team. I'm going to find out from our developers because I would do the same thing. We don't always know. And if you come across oh yeah, well, hold on, I think I have the answer to that. It's if you do, you do. If you don't, you don't.
Right. And the worst thing we can do is overcommit to a deal, right? Yes. Say something we have that we don't have.
Yeah.
And that deal's toast.
Right. So that was the only thing I would say. So again, yes, we want you to be as involved or as uninvolved as you want. You could also fill out the form, give it to Brian, make the warm introduction, as long as it's a warm introduction. And then you can kind of be all right, I'm just going to sit in the back and listen, or I'm not going to be part of it. That's fine. Or you can be really involved, but just don't get sticker shock and don't pretend that you know something you don't know. How's that, Brian? Is that
Sounds good.
All
Yeah.
right. Good, John. What do you got
I always
next?
tell everybody at the office I'm the only one who knows everything, and then everybody rolls their eyes because they know how not true that actually is.
Yes.
By the way, we Full Stack Payments would be the only processor here. I mean, we are processing the payments. So I wanted to clarify that. A couple people were asking about different processors.
Well, let me actually say something on this. This is interesting. So yes, that's totally true. Full stack payments, we're doing this for full stack payments, our payment processing. However, okay, there are absolutely going to be times to where I have to actually develop a new relationship with a new gateway or even a new processor underneath the full stack payments umbrella to get a deal done. I have a deal I'm working on right now that's, I mean, it's like gigantic national deal where, I have to look at other payment processing relationships underneath full stack. So like one of the big benefits of this is you're not just pigeonholed into this one thing. We already have 5 sponsor banks that we work with right now. We have like 4 different platforms we work with. So there's a lot of kind of variability with that. And so, yeah, we're going to do whatever we need to do to get the deal done. But yes, we're doing the payment processing. That way we know we can get you paid your residuals.
A couple questions. One thing that I want to touch base on, then James, I have a question for you. So, in the app, you actually see typically when you click on an ISV, there's a video, for kind of just a little 2-minute video, kind of explaining what that is. So when you go in the app now, you're going to see Full Stack Payments Enterprise. I did enable that, while Brian and James were talking. That video for the app is going to be coming out tomorrow. Probably it'll be in there.
Right.
So right now you can still go in and agree to the fee schedule and actually, refer your first merchant in, and then we're going to make some customizations there. We have a couple people asking about training and like things like brochures or flyers or email marketing templates and things like that. James, you want to talk about any? I know you're the training guy.
I'm very excited about it, actually. Yeah.
What are we going to do for like trying to help them learn how to prospect, things like that?
Sure. Yes, I already have a lot of resources along these lines. I've never put it into an official training, but I'm absolutely going to be doing that and super excited about it. I'll get Brian involved with this as well. But yeah, I'm really excited about doing a training on it. Now, again, this is probably one of the most difficult things to make a training program on because it's kind of like saying, let me explain to you the streamlined way to sell any merchant type in any vertical with any form of payment processing. It's kind of like, well, you can't really do that, right? So it's going to really focus more on just how to uncover the pain points and the needs and get that initial conversation again, and then get that over to myself and Brian so that we can actually dive in there because again, it's, I don't know how to describe it, man. It's just it's just so complicated.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Every time I get on one of these deals, like I learn something every time I go after a new deal.
Yeah. It's wild. There's so many variables.
Yeah.
That's why we have to do
Do it this way.
yes.
Yeah.
I have a question here about actually sharing in the payments margin. So I'm going to split this kind of in 2 different ways.
Sure.
What would it look like to, is there ever a time where we're going to share in the payments margin for just an individual big merchant account in terms of giving the merchant a potential kickback on the payments side? And then also, obviously, the ISV side as well, which we do share in the payments margin there. So maybe you can talk about both of those 2 things separately.
Talk about the ISVs first. So talk a little bit about the structure. So we're going to do a deal with an ISV, right? How do you look at that in terms of making sure that the ISV is getting a competitive amount of money while we're also compensating the agent?
Yeah, sure. Every deal is different. Again, I hate to go back to that.
Right,
that
but it's the truth.
answer, but it's the truth, right?
Yeah.
You can't avoid it. But what is it that ISV has to incur to do business with us, right? Like, what kind of integration do we need? What kind of assistance do they need for that?
Right.
So again, all boils down to ROI, right? So, but yes, we want to share with the ISV because they have to do work on it, right? And we want them to support our merchant, keep it going. And again, they're the teeth to that merchant to keep them on a long way. So, we need to be good partners with our ISV.
Right.
So we have to make sure that they are compensated. It's worth their time and effort to do it.
Yeah. One thing I find too that's so interesting, Brian, about this is like a lot of times what ISVs actually want is more of like payments operations. Even on the sales perspective, like John was talking about earlier, a lot of times we'll get an ISV and it's like one of the reasons we can bring them over is because they're currently getting a 90% split with like Finix or something, but they aren't selling any payments really because they don't know how to do it.
Right.
And they come to us and it's like, well, wait a minute. No. You can just send us every deal, every sale that you make, just send it over to us. And we have a sales team that will sell payments and we'll give you, maybe it's 50%, maybe it's 40%.
It's going to be lower. Yeah.
It's lower, but it's like you're getting that 40-50% of like everything. The other huge opportunity, in my opinion, is you find an ISV and it's like you sign them up to do their move forward deals, but they've already got 1,000 mids that they're not doing payments for.
Yeah.
They have a side terminal or whatever.
Or they're just used to making their income on SaaS fees,
Right.
which is, pennies compared to what we're talking about.
Right. And so when we roll that out to them, we're like, hey, look, we actually have a full team that can support you. We can sell the payments on your behalf.
Right.
Like, we're scaling the sales team up really, really rapidly. We have that resource. So I think that's another big one, I think, for the ISVs. As far as the merchants, I don't know, I'll say my opinion, and maybe you have a different opinion. I never share margin with merchants. I feel like when they're really large, they tend to be financially sophisticated enough to recognize that I could just give them savings instead of a kickback.
Yeah.
But I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think, that does happen, but it happens at that tier above our target market, which is why we don't want to play that game.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
It's just not a level that.
Meaning you could have like a gigantic merchant that does want a little bit of a kickback in some
Right.
way. And
Yeah.
Right.
Sponsorship fee or whatever the case may be, donation. But, again, that's for,
right.
people that do that. They might have a banking relationship with them
Right,
that they're
right.
making revenue over here on. So, but again, that's why our target market
Yeah.
is the way we
So I
set.
guess maybe the right way to answer that is, I mean, and like Brian and I right now are working on a university deal that does about $1 billion a year in processing, and we are doing something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's like, sure, we can do that, right? But yeah, for if you got these merchants that are doing $1 million a month to $10 million a month in volume, it's unlikely that that's
Yeah,
going
you
to
don't need
be
to do that.
necessary.
Yeah, correct.
Usually you can make it a little cleaner. So.
James, talk a little bit about an ISO model. So we were actually going to talk a little bit
I
about
forgot about that.
at the
Yeah,
beginning. And some of these questions that just recently came in, they're talking
Yeah.
about referral partners and
Right.
I obviously know too, they're talking about downstream partners and
Yes.
networks. So
Yeah.
Just give us a little bit there of some of the stuff that maybe
Sure.
we're currently working on, and without, maybe you don't have to give everything.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, John's nervous. I'm going to say what we're doing, but yeah. So we have a secret program in development. So no, we're very, very excited about the ISO program. I've mentioned it several different times that obviously a big part of our strategy is that we do want to leverage all these relationships we have with ISOs and agents. And so these ISOs, if you're an ISO out there, you've got, a couple of agents, or you're doing 10 deals a month, 100 deals a month, 200 deals a month. We have some really cool programs coming out where we are going to allow you to work with us, both on traditional deals and allowing your agents to have the mobile app, and really be able to make a fantastic economic model around that. So I'm not going to share any more than that right now, even though as much as I would love to, but we're still working on the build out. We want to make sure that before we bring anything to market, that we have an amazing experience. We have our core at Full Stack Payments is technology. And so we want to make sure that, when an ISO would work with us, they'd be like, wow, this is the best ISO experience I've ever had. And right now we're not there yet. And so we're going to continue to build for a few more months. But I do think within 60 to 90 days, we'll have a big announcement along those lines. And I'm super, super excited about that. But
Yeah. Next question. I want to be on the camera when we make the actual announcement, so that we want to move on to the next topic.
yeah, I know, right?
Okay, so somebody said, do I have to be a full stack agent to submit these leads? And I would say, what the heck are you waiting for?
Yeah, how are you not a full stack agent already? Yeah.
We're not exclusive here. Anybody can download the app and work.
I think I think this person asking the question is a little bit more in that legacy mindset that an agent is like, I've committed my life to working with this company. To be a Full Stack Payments agent means that you do this. You literally go to the App Store, you download the Full Stack Payments app, you click sign in with Apple, and then you're an agent, right? And so then from there, if you want to get paid, you have to agree to our compensation model there. But it's the compensation is based on like an extremely competitive Schedule A, true residual split. So yeah, to answer your question there, go get signed up.
Yep. All right. Really cool question here. When we bring one of these enterprise merchants to Full Stack Payments, are we only looking to partner that merchant with one of our current ISVs, or are we basically going to sometimes have to look for a new solution? I thought it was a pretty cool question.
We loved a new ISV to our portfolio.
Right.
If we can get that, for sure. If we can reward one of our existing ISVs, that's great too. So I guess the answer to the question, we're open to both, but new ISVs.
We'll do anything.
Yeah.
Let me actually narrow it down in terms of somebody else asked a different question. Say, for example, they're working with a merchant that does, multiple $1 million a month.
Right.
But that merchant fits into one of the ISV categories that we currently work with in the app. Should that agent submit that deal directly to the ISV,
that's a great
or should they
question.
submit that to the enterprise?
I would submit it to enterprise and let us.
Yeah,
correct.
Because what you're gonna run into there is you submit that directly to one of the. I mean, I'll say a couple things about this. Number one, that deal may or may not be a good fit for that ISV. So just because you're like, oh well, they have a software that covers this vertical, well, if you find a merchant that's got 500 locations or does $50 million a month, that particular ISV may or may not be the right fit for that merchant. And so you want to submit that to enterprise and let us work on that. So I think there's two different questions here, right, John? I guess the one question is, that one, right, which is what do I do with a big merchant that fits? And it's like send it to enterprise. But I think the other question is, what do I do with a large merchant that doesn't fit? So there's no ISV in the app. It's whatever. It's a multi-location bikes store, and it's like, well, we don't have a bike shop POS. You absolutely still want to submit that. So here's the whole idea that you have to understand. When it comes to these large deals, because they're so profitable, if they're in that, like we said, that sweet spot of $1 million to $10 million a month, there's enough margin there that it's going to make sense for us to do something. Whether that is replace their existing point of sale, pay our developers to build an integration into that point of sale, buy the point of sale company, whatever it is, right? We're going to explore all the available options for that deal. Yeah.
Okay. We've got a question here that says, if the merchant doesn't want like a pricing program, like a dual pricing program or surcharge model where there is, just naturally a lot of payments margin, at what point do we look at that and say that now it's not worth our time? Is that based on just overall margin on the account? Are we doing different types of pricing structures like Interchange Plus when we need to match their current rates? Talk a little bit about that.
You want to take that?
Yeah. So, I mean, again, if they do over $1 million a month, we'll take a look at that and we'll see if it's going to be worth it for us. And yeah, it's all about payments margin. So we're willing to do whatever. I mean, if it needs to be flat rate, if it needs to be Interchange Plus, obviously if we can get dual pricing, surcharging, we're going to do that.
Right.
Because everybody's going to make more money, which we like. But yeah, we'll do whatever it takes. And again, I would say if they're doing over $1 million a month, I mean, it doesn't really take a ton of payments margin to make that worthwhile. I mean, at 10 basis points, that's $1,000 a month. And I mean, that's not enough to justify a big integration, but a lot of times a big integration isn't needed. A lot of times it's just me or Brian making a phone call to the CEO of a company that we know and saying, hey, can you let us integrate or whatever it is.
Right.
And so it's like, well, if we need to make a phone call to generate $1,000 a month and give you $500 a month, we're going to do that. So yeah, absolutely. We'll do Interchange Plus. We will, we're in it together. We're literally 50-50 partners. We both have the same objective, and that is maximize payments margin. And if the deal's worth it, we're going to do it. And if it's not, then we won't.
And then in determining margin, also keep in mind, we have access to an amazing statement analysis software like a lot of the ICEs and other companies do.
Right.
But we can always do a really in-depth analysis and actually look to see exactly what the margin is on an account and how we can potentially win that.
Yeah, well, let's just say that Full Stack Payments is ISOAMP's favorite client. They all work for me, everybody. So we get that tough statement in, and we get that 47-page Excel document. It's like, I will pay my analysts to take a look at that one for us. So yeah, we have a great resource there with all these experts that are they're working for me already on that side. So
a lot of questions about different types of verticals, high risk, everything like that. So what types of merchants or is there ones that maybe just aren't a good fit, or are we worried about high risk and things like that?
That's a great question. So from a financial perspective, we can board high risk, no problem. I mean, we have the sponsor banks for it. I don't know your feelings on that.
Well, high risk, there's a lot of margin high risk.
Yeah.
The merchants often don't stick around a long time.
Yeah,
The sponsoring bank will shut them down. So is it worth going through the long sales cycle process to get 8 months of activity? I don't know. Again, ROI, fall back on it. But yeah, for high risk, again, you can make a lot of money, but it might not be long-lasting money.
I would also say too, I feel like just me personally, it's not as much my area of expertise, right on the high risk side. And also, Full Stack Payments is very cognizant of the reputational risk. I mean, I'm not, you bring me a pornography business that's doing $50 million a month, I'm not interested in that deal. So there's things like that where it's like, I'm not, reputationally, we're not going to align ourselves with businesses that we don't want to support. So there's that side of it. But I think on the financial side, I would say if you've got let's say an e-commerce merchant and they just scale a little bit too fast, and they need some other options. Sure, we'll take a look at that.
Or there may be a reserve that needs to come into play as well.
Exactly.
So
so we understand that side. We have the sponsor banks for it. But again, if you're saying a pure, just super high risk play, probably not.
Yeah.
I would say go. There's other. I've had deals with Maverick in the past. Maverick's great for those kind of deals. So
people specialize.
Yes, people specialize in it. That's Brian and I. That's really not our core specialty. But again, if there's a high risk component to it, we can certainly discuss. So.
This video, by the way, this is being recorded. A couple people asking about, whether or not this recorded. We have some questions regarding like agent support, and some people are saying, can they be involved with supporting the merchant ongoing and things like that, and how that works? Do they get insights into like how the how the merchant's processing, how the profitability on that, and obviously I know the answer to that. But go ahead.
Yeah. So and Brian already alluded to this. I mean, we want the agent to be involved. Even post sale is great. I think one big difference here. We talk about single point of contact. We talked about this a little bit. How important is that?
It's very important. So they don't want to. For merchants of that size, they don't want to be passed around. I'm not saying anyone has a customer service queue that they get passed around in, but it could happen. So we don't want that to happen. We want for a situation that's not going well, they're calling for a reason, right? So we want to address these merchants because they're of very high value to us. So that single point of contact is very important. Now, again, we alluded to that these opportunities are coming through mostly relationships, right?
Right.
Who are they going to call that person when something happens? They're going to call the person that brought them into the deal. So we have to arm you with the tools or how to handle those situations. So, maybe you're reaching out on behalf of the merchant to the single point of contact, whatever the case may be. But
either way, at Full Stack Payments, each enterprise account is going to have a single point of contact.
Correct.
Right. Initially, that's going to mostly be Brian.
Yeah.
And we have other people that can play backup in that way. But as we scale, we're going to add more people to this division of the company.
Yeah, this team's going to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. We're already having a pretty good pipeline of big deals, and we anticipate this event doing some big things as well. And so we're going to be growing that team. But yeah, we always want to have a single point of contact, and that means you as an agent or the merchant, either one, you'll have somebody you can reach out to at Full Stack Payments, and we're going to be ready to jump in and help out as needed. So.
Kelly said gambling ? Kelly, yeah, sure. I'd be fine to go gambling with you anytime. But I don't think that's what you're asking. So, I mean, what about the gambling vertical?
No.
That's a different category, high risk.
That's all, and that's like a different category in many ways.
Yeah, right.
No, we're not ready to handle gambling merchants. No. There's other companies that are great at that. We're not one of them.
Right. So. We don't want to put a merchant in a situation where it's not a good fit.
Exactly. Yeah. So and that's the main thing when you're talking about these big deals. Like I say, the worst thing you can do is pretend that you can do something that you can't.
Exactly.
And I would say gambling definitely not on our area of expertise right now, core competency. I mean, John is actually an excellent gambler, but I mean, as far as payments go, is what I'm saying, just to be clear.
Thanks for that, Chris. Best compliment I've had today. What about if the agent wants to sell the residuals, or if, Full Stack Payments wants to sell? So a couple of questions.
Sure. If you want to sell your residuals, I want to buy them. There you go.
Especially these merchants.
Yeah, believe me. Just anytime you want to sell, just let me know. I will buy them. But in all fairness, we do have first right of refusal in our agreements. And so if you want to go try to get a deal done with somebody, and you want to bring that deal back and say, hey, this is the offer, I have a chance to meet that offer as Full Stack Payments lead investor, which I will almost certainly do. But come to me first, and I'll probably give you a better deal anyway. So I love to buy residuals. That's fantastic. I have no plans of doing some short-term exit on Full Stack Payments, but in the event that we were to exit for some reason, these are lifetime vested residuals. So whoever would purchase our company would be contractually obligated to continue paying you those residuals and or buy those at a mutually agreeable rate. So.
Bill asked if Full Stack Payments has in-house merchant support. So, Bill, we do support our merchants for sure. We also sometimes utilize the ISV for support on the software side. So sometimes there's two different types of support, one to support the software through the ISV, and then obviously Full Stack Payments supporting the merchant with any type of payment support they may need and things like that.
Right. And I think specifically for enterprise, remember, single point of contact, right? So the key there is going to be, it's like, we're going to have a team of people that are very knowledgeable in payments that are going to be working directly with that merchant at the enterprise level to make sure they have a really good experience. And again, sometimes that is going to mean, we have to reach out on their behalf to the point of sale company or the gateway or who knows what we're dealing with there to resolve the situation. But, rest assured your enterprise deals, you're going to have some top people that are dealing with them. So,
yeah. And any ISV that's brought into the deal, we're going to have a good relationship with prior to it.
So. Right. Yeah, we've really loved working with the ISVs. It's been just awesome because again, our core competency is payments and technology, and that just really fits well because the ISVs, that's what they want. They don't understand the payments piece as well as they would like to, but they also need a partner that understands the technology so they can do a real seamless integration. So.
A couple people asking about international. So, right now we are processing for US-based merchants.
Right.
So that's going to be just the way it is for a little while. I know that some people are just like kind of dying up in Canada to process.
Yes,
Canada,
I know.
Like that, so.
We love you in Canada. It's funny. I still have, I think it's still live. You have to check it and see ccsalespro.ca, which is my Canadian version.
Oh, really?
It was updated about 10 years ago. So it's a little bit out of date, but no, I thought about going more heavily into Canada and I'm sure we'll get around to that at some point. So.
And I'm going to just touch base on this real quick. So when you put the lead in the app, we still have that function where we can update you through the app with notes and things like that.
Sure.
But that's not just what we're doing here. So, I mean,
Yeah.
Brian's going to be reaching out to the agent specifically. You know, we have your
Right.
email address. Obviously, you downloaded the app, or we'll get that from you. But there is more to it. So we do want to set up
Yeah.
a meeting with you kind of outside of the app. So it's not 100% like our other partnerships.
No,
where
I
we
feel like
just
it's very
communicate.
different. Yeah, it's very different, right? Because so it's like, yeah, you're not getting updated through the app. Honestly, you're going to be, this is very different with,
It's a phone call.
Yeah, we're not doing, this isn't like we're doing 100 deals a month per ISV. This is where we're doing like 3 or 4 deals a month on the enterprise level. And so it's like, yeah, if you're going to be dealing directly with Brian, he's going to be emailing you, calling you, texting, and you guys are going to work that out and then talking to the merchant directly. So yeah, very different.
I think for the most part, I have the questions answered.
Okay.
Some of them I probably missed. My email, by the way, is just john@fullstackpayments.com, JON@fullstackpayments.com. Happy to answer anything that I might have missed, some anonymous questions and things like that as well. But yeah, if you guys want to take a second and kind of wrap it
awesome.
up, it's been awesome.
Yeah, I just want to say I'm thrilled to be a part of this team. Although it's only been 3 weeks, every day has been a new adventure, and it's really exciting. And in the direction we're going in, is really exciting.
Yeah, we got a lot of really cool stuff, and we're just really excited to partner with all of you out there. I obviously you all know, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time now, about 15, 16 years, and I just have a real passion for helping those of you out there, the agents and ISOs, to remain competitive. I think we're bringing that to the table with a lot of these vertical specific solutions, and now we're also saying, hey, what about these larger accounts? We want to help you be competitive there as well, and the main way to compete there is through partnership.
Right. I mean, no one would like to see our agents get wealthy more than us, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
we'll give you a big old cardboard check first
Right.
if that happens. But yes, we want to see you grow.
We want to see you be successful, and we want to succeed together. So everybody, thank you so much. If you haven't already downloaded the app, please go to the App Store, again, either Apple or Android, and download Full Stack Payments. Just download the app there. Go ahead and get logged in, and then go over to Full Stack Payments Enterprise. Send us a monster deal this week, and let us show you what we can do. Thanks, everybody.